And you should see a message that this meeting is now being recorded. Excellent. All right. So today we are going to take a look, a further look into dimensioning. And I've got some answers to questions. So we'll get some dimensions all sorted out and automatically becoming your default and whatnot. So we'll get that taken care of. Second thing, we're going to draw some basic today. We're not going to draw a full building. We're going to draw a wall of the building, and we might draw a wall that has a couple segments to it, and you'll see what I mean when we get into it. But ultimately, we're not going to be drawing a full floor plate tonight. What we're going to be doing is looking at one wall. Maybe it has a door and a window, and we're going to be taking that wall and looking at it not only in our X and Y directions, but we're actually going to start drawing a profile view of that as well. So we're going to start looking at, hey, this is a profile view of this wall, maybe looking from the back. AutoCAD's much different than Revit. If you guys have the opportunity to take the Revit class, we draw walls where we just draw the wall, and we take a section and we're looking at it and it's in 3D, and there you go. It's right off the bat, about 2 steps, you're looking at a truly 3-dimensional wall. Well, AutoCAD doesn't necessarily, or at least the way that we're using AutoCAD doesn't necessarily utilize the 3-dimensional aspect of it. So we're going to create a 3-dimensional aspect using a 2D profile. So ultimately, we're going to be creating a wall with some windows and doors, and then taking a look at that in a profile view and building that as well. Any questions before we get going? Okay. So let's go ahead. I'm going to share my screen. We'll share this screen. Let me know if you can see it. Awesome. Again, I don't know why Zoom doesn't show me, but when I do Teams, I get like this nice green border around the screen and or window I'm presenting. Maybe I'm not presenting the entire screen. Maybe I'm just showing an application, but even that, it shows me, it shows what I'm presenting. This just says you are presenting, and I don't really know what so I like to verify. All right, so let's go ahead. I'm going to minimize these real quick before we go any further. Let's take a look right here. Make sure your name is marked present. Okay, if you don't see your name marked present, you should. So, but please holler at me if you didn't. Okay, and then let's get out of this. All right, so let's go ahead and open up AutoCAD 2023. And pretty soon it should come to the splash screen. It's taking its sweet time this evening. All right, here we go. So what I'd like to do, let's go ahead and go to this new and click the drop down, and we're going to browse templates. And for this, we're just going to use our ACAD template. And go ahead and click open. And it should bring you to a nice, fresh workspace. It looks something like this. And currently, we don't have any blocks in our block palette. You can see right here, current drawing blocks. We have nothing. If I go to recent blocks, you can see stuff that we created from before, but that's not imported into our project. So current drawing blocks, we've got nothing. We're in a brand new project. All right. So let's make sure everyone is at the same spot. Are we all Again, if you're not showing your camera, please use the thumbs up emoji. Todd gave me a thumbs up. Thank you very much. Just to make sure that I'm not leaving anybody behind. That's the thing. I would love to take this class like 10 times the speed, but I don't want to leave anybody behind. Right. So I don't think it would be valuable at 10 times the speed. We'd cover a lot more, but you'd forget a lot. So, but I do want to make sure that we can take this class, you know, relatively quickly as far as covering some new content. All right. Your block palette might not be showing, and we can bring that back up if you can type in blocks. To be honest, we're not even going to utilize it today. So I'm just going to go ahead and close my blocks palette. We might utilize it if we build something later. But right now, in the meat and potatoes of tonight's course, we will not be using the block palette or block editor. But what we will be doing is creating some walls and some hatching and windows and that kind of stuff. So let's go ahead, just because I like to get everyone on the same page. Let's go ahead and go to our layer properties. And you should see that you just have layer 0 right now. You might have another layer. There might be a def points layer. I don't know. There might be some other layer. There might be a layer that comes up once we create another layer. Either way, we're going to go ahead and create a new layer, and we're going to call it wall. And we're going to call it wall plan view. Actually, just wall plan. What that's meaning is that we are looking in plan view. Does everyone understand what I mean when I say plan view? Todd does. Thank you.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so plan view, just to make sure, plan view is looking from the sky, looking straight down onto our plan. So right now, we are looking at a top-down. Everything that we've been doing has been in plan view. Okay, so we're looking straight down on our plan. If we are to look at an elevation, it's referred to as an elevation view, and that's what we're going to do. Our next layer is going to be called wall elevation.
I cannot find layers.
Your layer properties?
Yeah.
Hold on just a second.
Well, let's go to AutoCAD. Yeah, you open feature there.
Okay, yeah. Well, we don't need to be in apps at all. Go back to home and here's your layers right there.
What was I doing now?
I don't know. You were in featured apps.
This wasn't even here.
You were looking in apps. All right. Okay, so let's make sure that, again, if you're somewhere else in the ribbon, okay, it's going to look a little different. We want to make sure that we're in the home tab, the very left tab in the top ribbon, and then layer properties is right there. Okay, the other thing, you can type in layer on your keyboard and it will pull up layer properties. Okay, so I want to create a wall elevation. I also want to create a wall plan. I'm going to leave both of these in white for right now. We can change them later. The other thing we're going to do two more. One of them is going to be called wall plan hatching. And then last but not least, we'll make a wall elevation hatching. Okay, so we're going to have these 5 layers, right? 0 is already going to be there, but we're going to have a wall plan, a wall elevation, a wall plan hatching, and a wall elevation hatching. And I don't know why it puts them in certain orders, but it does. So. All right, and we're going to leave them all white for right now. And that's fine. And then let's go ahead and close the property. Actually, before we leave here, let's go ahead and double click on wall plan. That's going to make this layer active. Okay, you can also check that by looking at the top in the ribbon, and you'll see wall plan right there under your layer properties. So, all right. So let's go ahead and start off by just drawing a really basic really basic wall. Again, I don't care where you do it on your, in your workspace in the model layout area. We could be, you know, right here. You could be 300 miles to the west. I don't care. The important part is that we're working in our model and not in our layout tab, right? The layout's going to be where the title block goes. That's also known as paper space, right? We're working in model space where it's nice and black. All right. So just for this example, let's go ahead and type in line and specify any point. And we're going to draw, I want to draw 20 feet. Oh, and it doesn't want to. Come on now. So let's go ahead and let's do this. It doesn't want to draw in feet and inches. It only wants to draw in inches, which I think we've experienced in the past. And it's all dependent on what template you choose from and where it starts you at. And I want to just start with the basic one, so that way we didn't get hung up in any of this. But let's go to here. And if I go to ACAD, let's go here. I just want to see what our options are. And user preferences, drafting. So default settings are in units unless set to unit list. So what I want to do is I want to go source content. I want to change that to feet, and target drawing units I want to change to feet. And I'm going to go ahead and see if this works for me. So line, and now I start to draw over, and I try to draw on 20 feet, and it doesn't work. So good thing is we have a way to get around this, because we did find a template last time that had our. So how many of you guys remember us creating a template for this class? Remember that? How many of you guys know where that template is? Because I believe if we open this template, and this is the DWG of this template, and I type in line here, I can draw in feet and inches here. So let's go ahead and use our construction template and go ahead and create a new drawing from that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let's go ahead and start this back over. Sorry. But let's go ahead and we'll start this right from the beginning. And we're going to go new. But this time, instead of choosing that template, sorry, I clicked the wrong spot on there. Instead of choosing the template ACAD, I want to choose the template that we assigned. Okay, so I want to go to new, and I want to create a new drawing from a template. I'm going to browse the templates, and I'm going to go to where I saved my template. So for me, it was just here. And then here's my template. And I want to start by creating a new drawing using that template. And I'm going to go ahead and click open. All right. And now with this template, we've already turned some grids off. We've cleaned it up a little bit, and the lines will allow us to draw in feet and inches. Okay. So everyone got that? We all good?
Can you hear me, Graham?
I can.
I'm just gonna watch for now, and I feel a lot better about when I go back and I'm able to pause everything. So I'm just
That's
gonna
fine.
watch.
The recording will be up for you. So
Yeah.
we can always
Thanks.
do that again. If you're stuck or you want to watch, that's fine too.
I like to learn both ways if I can. So
Sure. Absolutely. So that's why nothing's due tonight, right? So that way you can go back, watch the video, and take a look.
Thank you.
All right. So let's go ahead. I just want to draw a very, very simple wall here. So I'm going to type in line. I'm going to click a point, and I'm going to draw 20 feet to the east. And I'm going to make this wall 6 inches wide. So I'm going to draw a 6-inch depth to it.
Hey, Graham, don't we need to recreate our layers?
You're right. Let's go ahead and do that. My bad. Good call. Let's go ahead and recreate the layers real quick, because right now we should be starting with something that has just it might have def points and title blocks in there. Those are layers that are kind of automatically generated by AutoCAD, but let's go ahead and create our 4 layers that we want. So we're gonna type in wall plan. We're gonna make one wall elevation. We're gonna make one, let's just call it hatch plan and hatch elevation. And then I want to double click on wall plan to make that my active layer. Very good. And so now I'm going to delete anything that I had on layer 0. Make sure that I'm on wall plan right now. And let's go ahead and draw that 20-foot wall. So line, I'm drawing a wall 20 feet to the east. Come down about 6 inches. So 6 inches. Come back over 20 feet to the west. And then just close it up. So it's just this, this little rectangle right here. So before oh, Tom is back. Somehow he left, but that's no problem. All right. So let's go ahead. Once we've got our first wall drawn, I want to draw just a basic line, and let's go ahead and go to our O snaps real quick. Remember, OSNAP will bring up the O snap window, and I want to have pretty much everything on except geometric center, node, quadrant, and insertion. But all the rest of these, the nearest, tangent, parallel, appear and intersection, let's get those turned on so we can make our lives a lot easier. If you only have midpoint and endpoint turned on, it's going to be really hard to do what we're trying to do here. All right. So to start us off, let's just go ahead and start by getting a line right in the middle. Okay, so let's type in line. And I want to go find that midpoint of the line. Now, a midpoint is always shown by this triangle symbol, right? Whether it be the midpoint of this line, the midpoint of the side line here, the top line, you'll get all types of, symbols that'll show up, but you'll only get the triangle symbol that shows up if you hit the actual midpoint. So let's go ahead and hit our midpoint, draw from the midpoint of the top line to the midpoint of the bottom line. And what I want to do now is go ahead and copy this line over 4 feet. So we should have a line that's going between the midpoint and the midpoint of the one side of the wall to the midpoint of the other side. And then we copied that line 4 feet. And what we're going to do now is just draw another quick line. And just for this class, normally I would have 2 lines in here, and we can do it with 2. Let's do it with 2. We'll go ahead and draw from midpoint of one of your sides of your window to the midpoint of the other side. Since this is 6 inches in depth of the wall, I know that I've got 3 inches from the wall, the north side, to the midpoint. And if I want 2 of these lines in there, just like we did last week with our window, I'm going to move this line 1 inch north. So I can move this as far as I want, as long as this polar comes up and I type in 1 inch and hit enter. Now that might have hid behind the screen. I'll do that again. I don't know. Can you guys see, like, when you see my screen, are you seeing where it says like my name and showing like our zoom features? Are you seeing behind that too? Like, you don't see my Zoom doc, do you?
No, we don't see that.
Okay.
No.
Okay, perfect. So it was my Zoom doc was kind of blocking one of the moves there, so I'm going to do this again. So I drew this line again. If you missed it, we drew, I'll go ahead and come back just a hair. We drew these two lines. This is 20 feet long, 6 inches down, 20 feet over, and 6 inches up. I drew a line between the midpoint. Again, midpoint is triangle to triangle of our O snaps. And then I took that line from midpoint and I copied it using a base point. It doesn't matter where your base point is, but I copied it 4 feet straight to the east. So 4 feet. Once I got that, I drew a line across, across the midpoint to midpoint of that window. And I'm going to go ahead and move this line 1 inch towards the outside of the wall. And now I can copy it down 2 inches, and I've got 2 lines that are evenly dividing that window. All right, so I got 2 inch, a line that's 2 inches away from the wall, another one, and your last one at the window. Okay. So that created a 4-foot window there, but that doesn't really give us a lot of information about that window, right? That window, we know it's 4 feet wide. Do we know its height? Do we know where the sill height is? We don't know anything, right? We just kind of know that there's some type of a window there. Okay. So tonight's activity, we're going to draw another door. We'll draw a door over here, maybe another window, and then we're going to take this and draw the profile view of this wall. Okay. So right now we've got our window located here at midpoint at center, 4 feet to our east. Let's go ahead and copy this whole window assembly. So select, and you can select that by grabbing, one line at a time by clicking it. I use the method dragging from the left to the right, which means you need to encompass the entire line in order for it to be selected. That way I grabbed only these lines and not the lines on the wall. If I came from the right, I would grab those wall lines as well. Okay, so learning how to select the lines that you want is crucial. So what I'd like to do now is take this 4-foot window and I'm going to copy it with the base point of, again, base point doesn't matter where as long as you give it the right direction. I'm going to copy it from here. And I'm actually going to copy this down 9 feet. Okay. It's going to give me a foot gap. That's fine. But I'm going to copy this 9 feet away. And that should give me a 5-foot opening for my door. Perfect. All right. So what I'd like to do before we move any farther is assess the dimensions that we have here. So let's go ahead and use our linear dimension. And just our straight linear. You'll notice that right now it just says linear on here when I click it. And you also notice that when I click this and then drag this dimension out, once I select it again, it tells me the dim style is standard. Okay, and that's all fine and well. But let's go ahead and create our own dimension style. So what I'd like to do is, again, let's go ahead and draw the dimension from one window to the other. So again, using this linear dimension, we're going to click this corner here, drag it over, click this corner, and then bring it up. Now, I'm not a huge fan of how small the text is, what it's reading, how far out it is, the arrow size. So again, we did this last week, but we're going to have a little refresher again. And we're going to make this dimension something that we want to use. So I'm going to change the arrow size to 1/2 inch. I'm actually going to change that to 1 inch. Let's get this thing big. Okay. 1 inch arrow. And so that's changing this arrow right here, right? When I went back to, if I go back to 1/2 inch, you can see that arrow shrink by double. If I go to 2 inch, it enlarges by 4 times from what it was, right? From 1/2 inch to 2 inches 4 times. So we're just going to make a nice 1 inch arrow size with a closed filled arrow. I'd also like to change the line extension offset to be a 1/2 inch. Okay. Coming down a little bit farther in our text area, I'd like to change the text height to 1 inch and the text offset to 1/4 inch. And then last but not least, I'd like to take and change the units from decimal to architectural. And it should say suppress 0 inches right now. Let's go ahead and take that off. I want to take the suppress 0 inches off. Right now it looks clean at 5 feet, but I like it sometimes when it tells me that it's 5 feet 0 inches. A lot of the dimensions that you're going to see will read like that. Will read feet and inch dimensions, whether it's a full inch, a 1/2 inch, a 1/4 inch, a 1/16 of an inch, it will give you an inch dimension. So if it's 5 feet 0 inches, it will actually read 5 foot 0. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the suppression off of that 0, meaning, hey, if there's a 0 there, I still want you to show it, right? Okay. All
Hey,
right.
sir, I'm not finding those, those properties to change the lines. Maybe it's the version difference. I'm not sure, but
So is your properties palette up? If you type in properties,
it is up. Yes.
okay, and you select your dimension, the biggest thing is they're probably like, you got to scroll way down. You might have to keep scrolling. There,
I got nowhere to scroll. I got general, 3D visual.
are you, go ahead and share your screen with me, please, Todd. Oh, you've got that situation going on. That's right.
I can share my screen. Yeah, no, I can't.
Well, but you're on the other, yeah. So, but you've got the dimension selected, right? So do you see, like, if I collapse these, can you collapse any of these on your left-hand side?
These here.
I don't know. I can't see what you're seeing, but
Oh, yeah, I can collapse them, but I'm still not seeing. So I have general 3D visualization, plot style, view, and miscellaneous. That's all I see.
I don't feel like you've got the dimension actually selected.
Yeah, you gotta select the dimension.
You got to
Ah.
click that dimension. Once you click it, then everything changes.
Okay,
Yeah.
well that makes perfect sense. Thank you.
Okay. So now let's select the dimension and then scroll down on your left-hand side.
Okay, yeah, I got it.
Perfect. So yeah, you're going to need to go, you've got a few different ones to come down and change. So arrow size, we want to change to 1 inch. And that's in the lines and arrows area. We're also going to change at the very bottom of that, we're going to change the extent line offset to a 1/2 inch. So let me know when you got those two, and then we'll move down to the next ones.
Yeah. And then where's the 1/2 inch go?
Extension, so ext line offset, it's the very bottom one of the lines and arrows section.
Copy, I got it. So it's a 1/2 inch.
Yep. And that's going to change what that ½ inch does is changes this right here. It changes how far away is my leader or my edge of my dimensions starting based on the object. So if it's too close, they blend together and it's really hard to differentiate where the edge of the wall is versus the dimension. Having some type of a gapping there helps us quite a bit.
Yes, sir, I'm tracking.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right. The next thing that we need, that was ½ inch. We're going to go down and change the text height. So next one down, we're going to change the text height to 1 inch and the text offset to 1/4 inch.
Is the 1/4 inch for the text offset? Is that a pretty standard for like for the industry, I guess? It seems like it's even like it could be even more for like the gap in between the walls.
It all
and
depends on the scale that you're dealing with.
Okay.
So if you're dealing with something that was, 200 feet long, again, these dimensions aren't necessarily annotative, so it's a little different than how I deal with dimensions in Revit.
So what is it like in Revit? That's pretty subtle to me, that gap, that ½ inch. What was it, 1/4 or half?
It's
But
½
pretty
inch, but
subtle to me.
it's ½ inch, but it's ½ inch in scale. So
Yeah. Okay.
it is pretty standard. ½ inch is pretty standard.
Okay, thanks.
If you're doing something that's like the part is only a ½ inch big, obviously that, and you're dimensioning that, if you're doing small machine work, high detailed, that gapping is going to be a lot different, right? Because a ½ inch is now the entire part away. So it's all
Sure.
dependent about what scale you're working in and how close, you're dealing with. All right, the
Gotcha.
last two things was changing this to architectural units, Todd. And then we took the suppression off the 0. So right now with the suppression on, it just reads 5 feet, which is fine. It looks clean. However, an industry standard, you would really never see that. You're going to see what feet and inches, whether it's fractional inches, whole inches, 0 inches, you're still going to see a feet and inches. So we took the suppressed 0 inches, we took that off and said no. And now it reads 5 feet, 0 inches. All right. So once we have all of those set, let's go ahead and click the dimension. And I want to right click on it. And this will come up and it will say, hey, there's some options here. What do you want to do? And I want to come to dimension style and I want to click save as new style. And the style name that I'm going to call this is just construction 241. So that's half the battle right there. We made a dimension, we edited it. It's now called construction 241. So if I went and created a new dimension and just clicked linear and click this dimension, what's wrong? Nothing's wrong, right? We didn't tell it to do anything else. This is still the old one that we started with. And if we come down here, we could change that from the standard dim style to our construction 241 style. And you can see all the attributes update accordingly. However, that's not always going to be what you want to do. You don't want to have to come and change that dimension every time you want to use it. Okay. So if I go to my annotate tab and I go to dimension, what I want to do is change this one right here where it says standard to construction 241. I can hit escape as many times as I want. I'm out of the command. I'm not dimensioning anything. But since I set this to construction 241, now when I create a brand new dimension, so I create a new dimension, you know, a new linear dimension. And let's say I go from here to here. Now by default, it's starting with our class dimension. Does that make sense? Okay, so ultimately we just needed to create the new dimension style, name that style, and once that style is named, it comes into this list at the top. And if you just make sure that you have this one selected, then any new dimension is going to be the new construction 241 dimension style. All right, so we should now all have something that looks like that and I'm going to go ahead and just delete this 1 foot right there. We've got the 5 feet. I'm going to delete the 5 feet. Okay, we're going to get it back in a second. We're going to put a door in here. We'll make it nice and nifty. Okay. So, but what I wanted to do is make sure that we all set up our dimension style. So that way, when we utilize it in the next command or in a couple steps after we start building our door, we all are starting from the same spot. All right. So right now we've got 2 windows. Okay. And we've got about a 1 foot gap over here, a 5 foot gap here. If I do my math right, 1 + 4 + 5 would give me 10 plus another 4. We're going to be left with 6 feet on this side. Okay. I like symmetry. However, in this class, I like not doing things symmetrical. That way you don't have the exact same dimensions and everything else. So let's go ahead and copy this line. Just this line. We're not going to copy the whole window, but I want to copy just this line 2 feet to the right-hand side. So go ahead and you can, as long as you've got the green, where it comes up green, which I'm trying to see what it should be ortho. What else does it say? But as long as it comes up green, why is it not staying for me? Thank you. Because that guy's trying to come into play. I want to copy that. Oh, I don't want to copy 2 inches. I want to copy it 2 feet. So I'm going to copy this again. Copy. And we're going to come over polar. That's what I was looking for, not ortho, but polar. Same thing. Ortho and polar can be used interchangeably. They are 90-degree increments in a 360-degree fashion. All right. And we're going to copy that 2 feet to the right. I'd also like to then copy this again. Oh, not copy. Another 2 feet to the right. And then just like on the windows before, let's go ahead and we will draw a line across from midpoint to midpoint. We're going to move that line up 1 inch. And I'm going to copy it down 2 inches. And now we have 3 windows, some 2 foot gapping, a 5 foot opening, and another 1 foot gap. All right. Last but not least, let's go ahead and build a door. So this is going to be kind of cool. I want to make this a 42-inch door. So it's going to be a 3'6" door. We're going to end up with some weird spacing here, but it's all okay. So because we're going to be starting from midpoints. So no math is going to be needed. So what I want to do is I want to draw a line from midpoint from this window to the midpoint of the second window. I'm then going to draw a line from this midpoint straight down 3 inches. Once I've got that, I'm going to go ahead and drag it up and make it cross that 6-inch wall. Now that I've got this center line, I'm gonna go ahead and copy it. And I'm gonna specify the base point here, and I'm gonna copy it 21 inches to the west, sorry, to the east, and I'm also gonna copy it 21 inches to the west. And if I did my math right, that should give us a 42-inch door, right? So 3'6" door with nice wide front door. Okay, and I know we got windows that are super close. That's cool. Okay, that's what this is all about. So now that I've got this set up of where I want that door to be, I can now take this center line away and take this center line away. And now I've got that door. And since it's a front door and it's coming into a house, I'm going to go ahead and draw a line 42 inches down. And I'm also going to give it a door swing using my start end radius. Oh, wrong direction. Do it again from this
How far
side.
down did you make that door?
I made it 42 inches. That way it'll make a nice, it's the same width of the door, right? So it's just the swing. And if I want to, because the door actually has a little bit of depth to it. Actually, I'm just going to leave it like that right now. We don't need to include any crazy depth and get all out of whack with our assignment, because we're 45 minutes in right now. So again, let's not get crazy, but let's go ahead now and dimension this and see what happens. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this dimension, and I'm going to pull what I call a dimension string, which is where you have multiple parts of a dimension. Oh, will it let me do this? Let's see. Hold up, linear. And a single command. Let's see if I can do this. It doesn't let me do this, and I forgot that they don't have strings here. So we are going to dimension this the old-fashioned way. So each individual component gets its own dimension. So we're going to go ahead and dimension that. That's 1 foot. Same thing. We'll dimension this window. Okay, so we got the window at 4 feet. And if you can line it up with the other side, you know, you can use the other dimension line to line that up and get those right on the money with each other. Let's go ahead and then grab the dimension between here and here, which again is using that line you can grab. So all of these stack nicely. And we're just going to dimension the whole thing just for our records. And just so that way when we build our wall, it makes it nice and easy. Okay. Then a couple more dimensions here. Should be good to go. And last one. All right. So I got something that looks like this, a 1 foot gapping, a 4 foot, a 9 inch, another 9 inch, another 4 foot window, 2 foot gapping, 2 foot window, and a 2 foot gapping. All right, so we've been on wall plan this entire time. Let's go ahead and let's go to our layer properties. We'll bring those up. And I'm gonna go ahead and click on hatch plan. So double click that, and I'm gonna make my hatch plan. Maybe this nice little color here, index color 131. Okay, so it's kind of right in the middle. You can type in color 131 and it'll automatically come to it. And while we're here, just because I don't want to set this later, let's go ahead. You don't have to activate this right now. Okay, so we should be double clicked on hatch plan as our current layer. But I'm going to go ahead and change the hatch elevation to this 131 color as well. Okay, and just while we're in here, might as well kill two birds with one stone and take care of both of those. Now I still want to be on hatch plan as my layer, as my current layer, and I'm going to go ahead and close out of my layer properties.
Graham, would we normally want a dimension layer as well?
Sure, let's go ahead and do that. That's great question. A lot of times dimensions, it depends on who's modeling. Dimensions can definitely live on their own layer, and I like them to live on their own layer. I think that's the best place for them to live. However, that being said, I will say that some architects and some people that are in the trade may just put the layer of the dimension as whatever the layer they're dimensioning on. So like if they were dimensioning a window, it might be on the window layer. Whether it's right, whether it's wrong, I'm not here to argue that. But I will say that there's not always a dimension layer. I like a dimension layer, and I think let's go ahead and build one real quick, because that way, and then assign these to it. That way we can change them colors or do something that else, maybe turn them off, turn them on. And I'm just going to go ahead and make this called dimensions. Or you can just call it dim. That's fine. And what I want to do now, I'm going to keep hatch plan as still my current layer. We're not going to make this dimension layer current until we dimension something again. But what I want to do, and thank you for bringing this up, but let's go ahead and select all of our dimensions now. Okay. And you'll notice when I click on these, I should be getting some properties about them on the left-hand side, right? Rotated dimension, 3 of them. I've selected 3 of those dimensions in a row. You'll see as soon as I click a 4th one, this turns into 4. Okay, if I grab something that's not a dimension. So right now, everything that's in here you're seeing is rotated dimension. It's going to come up with that for almost all dimensions. Let's say I grab this line by accident. All of a sudden, you can see right off the bat that something's wrong, right? So if not all of the properties are included in that element, like this line doesn't have the properties that the dimensions have, it's only going to show the properties that are alike. Okay, so I can see that they're both on wall plan here. I can see what the line type is, but I no longer see what that actually is. So now if I deselect that, okay, you can see I'm back to just showing the dimensions. So let's go ahead and select all the dimensions. Real quick, you can do select similar. Okay, so this is kind of a cool trick. If I click this once and then right click on it and come down here and click, where'd it go? Right there, sorry, select similar. It's gonna grab all the dimensions on in my project. Now, if I hit here and hit Control A, now a lot of people are like, oh, that's gonna grab all of the dimensions. No, it doesn't. It grabs all of everything. So Control A for people that like to use that kind of a command, that doesn't work here. But a select similar does. So you can come here, select similar, and it's going to select all of them in the project. And let's go ahead real quick and change the layer right here in our properties. We can change it whether the properties is up or not, you can change it in the top ribbon. You can change it in the properties here. You could also change it in the layer properties palette. Okay, doesn't matter. The important thing is that all of them are selected. You change that layer type to, and in this case, we're going to just change it to dim. Okay, and when I built that dimension layer, I built it, and the last thing I had created was a layer with the color 131. So by default, that's how it picked up that color. Let's go ahead and put all of our dimensions in color 10, which is red. Okay, and we have this nice red layer for all of our dimensions. Cool. So let's go ahead. If you need to use the bathroom, whatever, it'll take a 3-minute, 4-minute break, and then we'll come back and we'll build the profile. Okay. Is everyone understanding the dimensions and how to change them, how to make it appear the way that you want it to appear? Maybe it might be a couple, trial and error. Maybe you might click into here and be like, oh, I actually want that text to be 2 inches high, not necessarily, 1 inch. Maybe that works better for you. But ultimately, you should be able to, with the knowledge that you've gained, be able to come in here and customize any of these dimensions to read the right units, the right kind of text height for whatever we're looking at. Maybe it's super, super small and you need to make this really small. You can do that too, okay? So right now we're dealing with a 20-foot wall. Maybe we're dealing with something that's 0.2 inches. The dimension style completely changes once you go to something that small. And we can look at doing that at some point if that's if that's something you guys want to go over, is some dimensioning something that's super, super small. It's kind of micro dimensioning.
Yeah, I think it'll just take some practice, getting in there and messing with it.
Yep. But it's pretty straightforward as long as you've got it selected. You're gonna be editing, everything's pretty straightforward. It might take you a second to figure out what each one of them does, right?
Right.
What
Cool,
was
thanks.
each of these 5 layers you had, dimensions, hatch plan, wall plan? Okay.
Yep.
Title block, wall plan.
Title block and def points may be there, they may not be there. Again, those are ones that are auto-created by AutoCAD. Oh,
I'm missing one.
dimensions, hatch plan, hatch elevation, wall plan, and wall elevation. All right, is everyone back? Give another minute. Cool, Aaron and Miles are there. Awesome. All right, so real quick before we get going on our elevation, let's finish this off with our last thing real quick, which was just going to be some hatching in the wall. Okay, so let's go ahead and go to annotate. Sorry, we're going to go to home. And we're going to go to hatch right here. Okay, it's also H-A-T-H, H-A-T-C-H on your geez, why can I command line? Thank you. All right, so and then for this, let's go ahead and choose a pattern of let's see what we don't have any great ones for this, but let's go ahead and choose the pattern of, I guess that just this like ANSI 135 with a little diagonal hatch to it. And then we should be on the hatch plan layer. So that way, when we click inside of the area, each little internal area, so that are not windows, will then become hatched out. Hit escape to get out of the command, and if you zoom in, you can really see that pattern, right? If you zoom out, it kind of just appears to be a solid, but it's actually stripes with dashes and dots. Okay. All right. This will make more sense as why we throw color in there, at least for me, when we go into our elevation view. So let's go ahead, type in line on your keyboard, and we're going to create a line from the top left side of our wall. And I want to just go up. Let's just go up 36 inches, so 3 feet.
Are we still on hatch plan?
Right now, this one's on hatch plan because I haven't moved it over. It doesn't matter what this one's on because we're going to delete it. However, I want to change over to the wall elevation layer for my next move. Okay, so again, we're just building a line here that's representing 3 feet. And then we're going to start our next move. Okay, so I'm going to type in line. And we're going to draw a line from this endpoint 20 feet to the east. And then I want to draw this line. And just because I want to make this kind of simple, let's make it's an exterior wall. Let's just go ahead and make this a 10-foot wall. So I want to draw this 10 feet high. And then I'm going to go ahead and finish the wall off, right? So I'm going to draw back 20 feet to the west, and I'll close the wall out. Hit escape, and then go ahead and take that, the detail line that you drew, and we'll delete it. All right. So there's many ways to go about the next portions that I'm going to show you. What I'm going to teach you is the way that I learned to draft, the way that I feel is the most efficient way to do what we're about to do. And there's a lot less math involved. Okay, there's a lot less moving and calculating and that kind of stuff. Is this the only way to draw a profile? Absolutely not. Okay, this is just one way to do it. But what I'm going to be utilizing is I'm going to be utilizing the plan view to help me draw my profile. Okay. What I mean by that is when I come into this view right here, it's blank. I could start off and type in line and start drawing a window, you know, and come over here and draw some type of window, right? But that's not necessary. And then I could dimension that whole thing and, you know, but it's not going to match right off the bat. What I want to show you is that if I take what we've got for our profile, or sorry, for our plan view, let's go ahead and take what we've got and transfer it to our profile. So what I mean by that is we're going to draw what I call construction lines, okay? And you can be on this wall elevation layer. If you don't want to be on that, you could be on your own. I say, let's go ahead and keep it on the wall elevation layer, and we're going to adjust the construction lines. You could do this with its own layer, with its own, what I call reference planes. Again, let's go ahead and just draw this out. We'll all see how it works together, and we can come back for some questions. All right, so I'm going to use what I call construction lines. We're going to draw these lines to kind of create a profile view of what we're seeing without doing a whole lot of work. So I'm going to type in line on my keyboard, and ultimately every place there's an intersection where it changes wall type, I'm going to take, ultimately every place that you've got this dimension, we're going to take a line from there and draw it straight up. Okay, I don't care if it goes through this top, through the bottom, whatever. Okay, same thing. And what we're going to create this network of lines that represent where our window edges and where our wall edges are. By the way, for those of you, I'm hitting enter. So if I type in line and hit enter, it's automatically going to draw a line because I told it draw a line, right? And I hit escape. If I hit enter again on my keyboard, it's automatically going to do the last command that I typed in. So instead of typing a line 12 times in a row, I can type it in once and then repeat the command by just hitting enter on my keyboard. Saves a little bit of leg work.
That's huge. Yeah. I wish I knew that.
Well, you do now. Okay.
I do. Thank you.
So same thing with any other command. There's not a lot of commands that we do back to back to back, right? A lot of times we'll draw something, then we'll go to mention it, then we'll hatch it, we'll do. But when you're dealing with a situation where you're doing the same command over and over again, whether it be, I mean, it could be, just drawing this circle, right? I could draw that circle. If I want to do it again, hit enter. Do it again, hit enter, right? Okay. So if I don't hit enter, I'm not in any command, right? So
I was wasting a lot of time there. Yeah. So that's good. Thanks.
Cool. Okay. All right. So what we've got right now is essentially a network, right, of where the windows and walls go. Well, let's go ahead and finish this out. So what I like to do now is I want to put in, and this I kind of refer to, I don't know, who knows what a story pole is? You ever heard that definition? Okay, so we got one. Todd, what's your definition of a story pole? Where have you used one or heard about it?
Well, I've used them plenty of times during construction, but like, let's say you're building a block wall or, a concrete wall or whatever, you build that story pole, you can make marks along it and then either build to it or, check it on the other sides of the foundation or whatever it is you're building.
Right.
That's
So
one example of a story pole.
exactly. So it's just a tool to help us level things out, right? Ultimately, help us level it, and maybe not necessarily be level, right? But know where 8 feet is, know where 12 feet is, know where 4 feet is. Okay.
Sure.
So I'm gonna build what I call my AutoCAD story pole over here on my left-hand side. Okay, and what that is it's the same type of thing that we just transferred from our plan view, except we're going to do it on the left side and create some elevations with it. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start, and I like to make sure things are lined up. So I'm going to just type in line, and I'm just going to draw an extension line off of there, right? I can delete all this all day, and in fact, I can even just pull this back a hair, right? But I now know that this is aligned with that line, right? I know that my starting point is going to be the same on both of them. Whereas if I just typed in line and tried to just draw a line, you know, here, I don't know for sure that the bottom is flush, right? So that's why I took an extension, or, you know, and I pulled this back just to give a little separation so you can see the difference between the wall and where this story pole is going to be. Okay, so let's go ahead and I'm going to build a couple different story poles on here. So I'm just going to type in line again. Oh, line. And this time I'm going to use this really handy nearest, which just keeps me intersecting anywhere along that line. And I'm going to draw up 2 foot 6 inches or 30 inches on my, and I'm going to go ahead and just hit escape and leave that right there. I'm also, so that one was 30 inches. I'm also going to draw one, and I don't know the inches off the top of my head. Yes, I do. 84 inches. 84 inches. And don't care. It doesn't matter if you know how high these are right now. Okay, we're going to come and we're going to dimension them, throw some dimensions on them so you can make sure that you're grabbing the right one. And you can see right there, 2 foot 6 on that one. And then we'll grab this one here. And that's going to be 7 feet. And then last but not least, let's go ahead and put one more in there. Now, maybe this is too close to this one and you want to add one in between. Let's go ahead and select both of these. Use our move command and just go ahead and move this down. I don't know. We'll just move this down 2 feet just to give us a little bit more room. And last but not least, I'm going to draw one in here and I'm just going to make this one go to 6 foot 8. Okay, and that's also going to be, that would be 6 foot 8 would be what, 80 inches? Okay. All right. And then last but not least, I like to put dimensions on that so I know where I'm coming from. All right. So do you see where this is going? Okay. What we're going to do is we're going to create a network of crosshatches. So I'm going to draw a line from here all the way across. I'm going to draw a line from here all the way across. And last but not least, I'll draw a line from my 7 foot mark all the way across. And right now we have all of the windows and all of the doors laid out right in front of us. We just have to go and trim out the fat. Okay. So what that means is if we use our awesome trim command, so let's start with the windows. Okay. This is going to be my window right here, the bottom of my window at 2 foot 6. The top of it's going to be right here at 6 foot 8. Okay. And I want to use my trim command, so trim. And I want to delete the lines that are connecting around that window. Pretty simple, right? That was a pretty fast way to draw a window. Okay. I'm going to do the same thing with the window with the 2 windows over here. Yep, so there's one more window. And then last but not least, we'll go ahead and build our 3rd window. I'm going to hit escape. And then the only thing left we have to do is create our door, which if we remove this line and this line, we now have the outline of our door. Hit trim, can delete the lines right around that. And just like that, we now have, yeah, there's a few excess lines to get rid of, but I can select those, delete that, select these, delete that, select these 2 tops, select those two sides, and just like that, we now have a profile of a wall that's 20 feet long with two 4-foot windows, a 2-foot window, and a 3-foot 6-inch door. Cool. Okay. Is this something I think that you guys are going to use in the future? I don't. Okay. I teach it because this is part of the class. This is how AutoCAD works. This gives you a fundamental understanding of how we created details and profiles of the past. Okay, so this I'd probably just pull this up, and same thing here, just pull this up, and now those detail lines, everything's there. I don't have all my excess hatching. I could delete this story pull. I'm not going to. I'm just going to delete those 2 lines out of it. But that's what we had to do back in the day, is every time we wanted to create a section view, you would have to create an elevation view using your plan view and then drawing it out as an elevation. In today's world, this is very, very seldom done.
How long ago are we talking about?
10 years?
Were you doing it then?
No. I mean, and even 10 years, like that 10 years, and that's like the end of it. Like, this is how from 1980 to, I would say, 1998. Even give it probably 2004. 1980 to 2004, this is how everything was drawn. In the 2000s, I started to come up with some 3D elements, and I'm going to show you this real quick. Just because I want to show you a little bit of an extrusion real fast. But this is where this is going. Ultimately, this is how you had to create this. This is back, and I say 1980. That's just when they started using this method on CAD. Before that, it was just the same thing, just with pencil and scale rules, right? Same thing. The exact same method. You draw your construction lines, right? You get a framework, and you can dial back in what you actually want to use.
This is why I'm learning this, because I still do with a pencil.
Sure. And that's why I teach this too, because it's important to understand how this started.
I have drawing board, I've got all scales and everything, cross scales.
Yep.
I still draw my drawing.
Right. So the new way of doing this would be in a 3D realm, which, to be honest, I'm not even gonna get into it here, but ultimately, instead of drawing this in, I'm gonna pop this open real quick, and you're gonna see this real quick. I'm gonna give you a 5-minute demo of why we don't do what we're doing anymore. Okay. Now that you've seen what we do, I'm gonna open up Revit, and every architect in the world at this point has converted to Revit. I guarantee that, unless you're somebody that is very, 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 very small, and you're still and even if you're very small, in order to have access to AutoCAD, you still have access to Revit. I mean, everybody's moving away from 2D drawing. And you'll see why right now.
What are we doing then? What do you need to do this class in order to understand Revit, or do you think that like people
No.
should
This
automatically?
class is part of the curriculum
Yeah.
that I'm phasing out.
Oh, okay.
So ultimately, I want to take this class, Revit, and then the spring version of this class, condense AutoCAD into 4 weeks, essentially what you guys have had, and stop there. And pretty much that's kind of it. And I'm just going to open up. I'll just go to I'll build a brand new project. Okay. This
Can I
is
ask real
Revit.
quick, sorry.
Go
Do
ahead.
we have access to Revit?
You do. You probably would just need to download it, and you can use the same, but I don't want to get into it. Just real quick, I want to show you this. This is why we draw what we draw. So now the same wall. Okay, I'm going to build that same wall that we just built. There's a 20-foot wall. Okay, we're looking at it in plan view, right? Okay, and I'll throw a quick dimension on it. There's my 20-foot wall in plan view. And I'm going to add a 4-foot wide. So sure, that'll work. We'll put in a window here, put in a window here, put in one here. Okay, this one needs to be different. Okay. It's
So
going to
much
be a little
business.
different design, whatever. Okay, you'll see what I'm getting at in a second. That's double. I just want to make this wide there. Okay, I'll drop in a door. Okay. And then automatically I can go to like this profile view. And there's my elevation. That's what we just drew. And I can come here and dimension this. And when I move this window on top of the door, which, right, that's wrong. It can't happen. It'll tell me that can't happen. Okay. There's all types of things that are advantage of moving forward. This is why I'm showing you how to draw it there. But in the long run, you're not going to utilize that. Okay. You're not going to utilize that 2D drawing method anymore. We're going to draw it in 2D. We're still drawing in 2D. We drew the wall in 2D. We drew the window in 2D. But now, if I go to my 3D view, you can see that wall exists in 3D, right?
Forgive my ignorance, but we're gonna learn Reddit eventually, or that's
Next
not
semester, if you've got a chance to take construction 246.
So do you feel like this is almost obsolete at this point? Well, no offense to what you're doing.
No.
Obviously.
No. I believe me, I know.
Yeah.
Yes,
So
I
you
do.
feel like, yeah,
I do.
okay.
I do in the long run because AutoCAD is a program that isn't getting developed. It's not it has nothing on this program that you've got in front of you right now that I'm demoing.
That was like you just flew that out like in like 30 seconds. That's
right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I built the view for you. I could dimension it. Like this is where I live in this world.
Yeah.
AutoCAD
Okay.
is a world
Thanks for your honesty.
of former use, I will say. This is how we had to. This is why I just demoed what I did and did both of those is now you can see, oh my gosh. We're not
Look how far we've come, yeah.
exactly. But
I might have missed, but did you set your header height and your sill height or no?
It's
in my did I? No, because it came in by default. So
okay.
I can go ahead and tell it right here, my sill height, I want it to be 4 feet. And that just move that window up to 4 feet.
Nice.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
Like I can tell it I want it to be 2 inches off the ground and it'll drop it down to 2 inches. Okay,
Wow.
so like the dynamics and parametric abilities of Revit is what has taken over and why AutoCAD is AutoCAD. AutoCAD was great for 30 years. 30 years, I mean, realistically, but after 2010, it's just, you can do stuff. I could draw a wall in 3D in AutoCAD, but it's not the way that it works here. Okay, I could build it. Go ahead.
Sorry, do we have access to this to explore in the meantime? Or
You
do.
You just have to download it but with that license that you got for this, for Revit or for AutoCAD, you should be able to download the same. Just go to that same download page and search Revit instead of AutoCAD.
Awesome, thanks.
Isn't it this virtual architect or 3D architect they use? They have a cheaper programs, but I can draw all this Revit type.
Revit is Revit is the program that everyone's using at this point.
Yeah, professionally, but
there are other software for small time stuff. However, I don't know them. I mean, Google SketchUp is like as good as almost anything else is.
Google SketchUp, I have played with that a little bit.
So, but I mean, as far as like other yes, there are other programs out there. but this is what is driving the industry.
Okay.
Like the other programs are taking less than like 2% of the entire industry.
See,
So-
this is, I didn't have no access to it and I did not know how it worked, but looking at it, I think I can easily learn this.
It's very easy. Revit's pretty easy to learn. So ultimately, the goal is for this to become a and I would highly encourage everyone to take the Revit class, which is 246. I mean, ultimately, the final project, I'll just pop one open real quick. Let's see, let's see who had a good final. I think Yosef's had a pretty good final. But you can, and
This is
we're
the
gonna be,
final for Revit, or this is the final for AutoCAD?
this is the final for Revit. I'm just popping up there, like
Awesome.
what you get to see.
Yeah,
So
cool.
ultimately, we're gonna be building something similar to this in this class, but it's not gonna be this. So this was his final project for Revit. Pretty easy. Here's like the whole. Takes a second to load. There's a lot more data involved in Revit. So Revit is all driven by a database, whereas AutoCAD's driven by X and Y vectors. So this has an entire, and I don't know, this is taking a little bit of time, but come on. But ultimately, everything's a part and a piece. It's got walls, it's got windows. We can edit the windows. Everything's parametric. So like, here's a garage door. Like he didn't put a roof on this, but all of these are 3D pieces.
It's like each section remembers itself or whatever, yeah.
Right.
Interesting.
So it's pretty cool. Like going through it. Here's the floor plan. Here's his exterior elevations. Okay, and all of these are created based on one model. Whereas this in our AutoCAD, we draw, and again, this is just one wall. Next week, we're gonna do all 4. Okay. So am I excited to teach this? Is it the best thing in the world? No, but it does really understand where drafting came from. Okay, I think that's important. But I want to be honest with you. I don't think you're going to be utilizing how to draw the construction lines to build that window, right? Whereas when David Jacobson taught this, he taught this like that was currently happening in the real world right now. And it's just not the case. And I don't want to teach something that you're going to walk out of this door and throw away. Right? So that's my 2 cents. I think it's valid. I think what we've done in AutoCAD is pretty much where we would need to stop. That's pretty much a good intro. You guys understand the program, get some basics of it. And then you jump over and we go into this, and then we really start to, here's where we started. All right, now that you've learned a little bit, let's jump into the car.
What is Maya?
Maya? Maya is a whole different software. We're not going to talk about Maya. Maya, here's the thing. There are a ton of other 3D modeling softwares, okay? Tons and tons. But they're not construction-based modeling softwares. A lot of them are like, you can build really cool, like, spherical, like, design stuff. But when it comes to like actual, and that's what Maya's amazing and it's such a powerful program for layering textures and all types of skins on objects. But it's not a construction program. It's not anywhere near what AutoCAD or any of these are, because these are programs that like allow us to give real dimensions in real time, whereas that's just like a conceptual model. You can maybe 3D print it now, right? There's all types of things you can do, but there's what I'm getting at is a lot of the other 3D modeling softwares aren't construction modeling. It's more based on like modeling for like maybe modeling designs for like interior to a video game, right? Or modeling objects but it's not necessarily construction like this is, where this is designed with, dimensions at the core of like everything, can all be dimensioned back to something. I know that we're getting off topic, but
Can I interrupt one more time?
yeah, please do.
So is Revit, once we move on to Revit, do we learn like, I have no idea for for graduation purposes, is there Revit 2, is there Revit 3, or is it once we get in?
That's the goal. So right now there is one Revit class. So 5 years ago, I started teaching the Revit class. I guess winter quarter will be my 6th year teaching Revit. David Jacobson has taught AutoCAD forever. It was my understanding when I first signed on, it was like, hey, once Dave retires, this class is going to transform into a multi-part series. So that's the goal, is to have a BIM 1, a Revit class, and then ultimately a class that's a culminating class that we utilize what's called Navisworks. And Navisworks is a pretty awesome software where it doesn't you don't draw anything in Navisworks. Like I don't build any drawings. I don't build walls. I don't draw anything in it. But what it does is it allows me to take the architectural model, the electrical model, the mechanical model, and see where we're hitting each other, where there's issues. And it's a clash detection software. So ultimately the goal would be to learn little bit of basic AutoCAD, learn some basic Revit, then get into some more intermediate level Revit in the second class. And then the last class would be starting to utilize like, hey, we'll break this class into, 5 different groups, and each group is a different trade. I give you guys a model that's completely effed up, right? Your sprinklers hitting mechanical piping here, and we're hitting the hydronic lines over here. And we got to work together and utilize not only Navisworks, which is just a clash detection that's just saying, hey, this is hitting. It's not telling you how to fix it, right? We then determine how to fix it, and then go back to our Revit platforms, and each group makes their own fixes, and we re-upload our model, and now we've got something that's constructible, right? So ultimately, when I first got hired on, that was the goal, and it's still my goal. I don't know if it'll be next year or if it'll be 2 years from now when that full series rolls out, but we're getting closer and closer all the time. So I'm excited about it. And
in mechanical, there's a CATIA group about that, right?
CATIA.
Yeah, where you can do all mechanical pipes and.
Well, CATIA, yeah, and that's again, it's
industrial.
At this point though, they've all moved to Revit.
Yeah.
So like CATIA, again, there's all these other programs out there. They're probably not going to be utilized in the construction industry.
Well, CATIA was not used in construction.
Right.
Going or.
Right.
Auto manufacturing. I learned that program.
Okay.
Way when people going in 2000.
All right. So let's get back on track real quick. Let's finish this drawing because this is still part of our curriculum. We still got to do it. I know that I got you all excited with the future of everything, but let's step back and take a look. We still need to finish this, right? This still needs to be turned in as a working drawing. So let's go ahead real quick and finish it off. So let's go to our dimension layer, and we can dimension. I don't care to dimension left and right, because I can get all of that from down here, right? I know that this is a 2-foot gap right here by looking at this dimension, right? But I don't know anything about elevations, right? So in your profile view, the main dimensions you're concerned with are your Z dimensions, right? The dimensions in the elevation. Okay, so if I come up here and we grab our dimension, okay, I'm going to go ahead and grab. And this time I actually want to use like, just go ahead and use like the bottom corner. And then I'll use perpendicular. And then I'll set that dimension. And then next I'll go ahead and do the same thing. And then I can utilize the dimension that I previously set to line them up. So I'll set those two dimensions. Now I can assume that that goes over, and a lot of times you are going to leave it just like that if it's obvious. If for some reason this window was actually a different height, and I'm going to go ahead and make that a different height real quick. I'm going to go ahead and make this window 6 inches taller. And I don't need a story pole to do it. I could pull over something at 2 feet to do that. But again, I know where I'm at. Everything's pretty much set for me. So I can just go ahead and extend that down. Now that I've got a different height window, I definitely want to include 2 different dimensions for those windows. So I'll grab this dimension here. And then same thing. Okay, and so now you can see that one's 4'2", this one's 4'8", and I'm gonna grab a dimension for the door. And last but not least, since I have this window between these two, and I can't really make out a straight line between them, I'm gonna go ahead and dimension this by itself again. If they were right next to each other, and it was very obvious, you could probably get away with just pulling one dimension. All right. So last thing I'm going to do is change this to the hatch elevation. And I'm going to hatch this wall. I can use the same ANSI 135 and then pick my internal point. And there we go. And the whole thing is hatched because our windows and our doors were already created as a cutout or a void. And I don't really like the way that that looks against that, so maybe I'll take the hatching elevation and, you know, maybe I just want to turn it off. That's fine. It's there. I just don't want to see it while I'm working right now. If you want to turn it back on, you absolutely can. Okay, so that's why layers are there. You can keep them, you can turn them on, you can turn them off, but you don't have to take that hatch and delete it, right? So any questions on what we've gone over tonight? We can go and get as extensive as we want. Right now, this is just basic openings of your windows, right? We could go in there and we could draw all the trim work around the windows. You could draw your trim around your door. Okay, we could draw in some, maybe these windows, you know, maybe these windows are actually, if I go back to wall elevation, you know, maybe these, we want to show this with a, you know, a 4-pane window, something like that. Okay. Again, you could do whatever you want. I'm not requiring one thing or another. Maybe you want to show that this one here opens by like sliding upwards. So like, let's do this. Let's draw this one here. And I've seen this a lot where you'll have a window that looks like this, and then they'll just annotate it roughly something that looks like this. Right, where you've got a window and that this is going to slide up. I've seen that a lot on the windows. Okay, maybe it's something like this, where we're going to have this one here, and we slide over. Okay, and a lot of times maybe this arrow would be a block that was created that you would just drag over from your block palette. Okay, so instead of having to draw individual lines, you can keep that consistent by dragging that from a block. Okay. So something like that, right? You now have a couple different options, but ultimately we're just showing the cutouts. We're just showing really the basics of what that wall is going to look like. And if you want to get super fancy, here's your chance to get super fancy. All right. So what we're going to do, we're going to build a new layer. Okay, you don't have to do this. Okay, for tonight's homework assignment, please send me a screenshot of at least just this where you've got your profile and your plan view. Okay, and I will jump over right now and go to class 1025 classwork. Let's go here. Edit this, make it a online file upload, and it'll be due by next week. All right, so that should be set for everyone to be able to upload their submissions. So what I want to see again is just this for a screenshot. If you have your hatching in there, great. I don't care one way or another. If you want to earn a bonus half a point, okay, we're going to come here and we're going to type in offset. We're going to specify our offset distance as 3.5 inches. We're also going to create, sorry, before I do this, I want to create a new layer, and I'm going to call this trim. Perfect. And just because I want it to stand out, I'm going to go ahead and make that trim. We'll just make it this, we'll make it this 92 color. Kind of nice. All right, and I'm going to double click that and make that my active layer. And so now offset, again, it's set to 3.5 inches. And so let's go offset 3.5 inches, then object that I want to offset. And I am going to click. Now, why is this not? Oh,
Not a quality, but it's line.
no, but for some reason, so, and I guess that I didn't realize that this did this. I'll try this again. So,
Select all 4 lines and then.
well, you can do that. That's not what I'm getting at. What I'm getting at is that this line right now, I made trim my current layer. So when I was offsetting this, I was expecting it to be on the trim layer. It looks like when it offset, it actually takes the layer that the original object was on. Okay. Which is kind of funky, even though I'm on trim right now. Make current. And I want to offset. I feel like that should go. Anyhow, either way, no big deal. We can come back. We have the tools to make this. So I'm going to put an offset around here of everything. And this is going to be nice and tight, which is great. And so now all of these, I will extend. Can I extend? That went too far. I don't want to extend there. I want to extend the corner. So I don't want it. So when I hit, normally when I hit the trim tool in Revit, you can just click this line and this line and they'll trim together. The extend tool should do that here, but it's not. Because that only extends it out to the line. Because that will extend this line out. Like in Revit, if I go here, on my floor plan, and I draw like a line, I draw. Oh, come on. What is it doing? Oh, apparently it's here. If I just type in line, sorry, I'll just show you this. So this is, again, this is another huge advancement right here. You've got this trim or extend to corner feature. So if I just draw a model line, which none of my shortcuts work. So if I just draw a detail line and then another detail line, when I use my trim command, I can literally click this line and that line and they'll auto trim together. Huge advanced feature that AutoCAD doesn't have. So you can make these lines cross each other and like I can extend this line, but I can't physically trim those two together. So I could go around and I'll probably just do something like this. And I'm just going to do it for one of these windows. Okay, but if you wanted to get an extra point or something or whatever, the half a point. And you could always extend these and trim it back. It just doesn't allow you to trim together like I like in Revit. All right, so this will trim that back to here. This one will trim back to here. And now I'll take this whole thing, select them all. And I'm going to go ahead and put that on the actual trim layer so that where our trim looks a little different, right? So if you wanted to gain an extra half a point, put some trim around your windows and door and send me a screenshot with that. Any questions before we wrap up for the evening? Cool. So again, I know this is kind of tedious work, especially since it's all line work, but that's what this class is. This class is all line work in AutoCAD. Hopefully I see all of you again so we can do this again and we can do the entire class. Our entire semester will be covered the first night. So it's a pretty cool feeling to come in, do everything that you spent the last, 3 months and whip out a much better project in an hour and a half than you could over 3 months with detail lines. So it's just a different way of modeling. Like I said, no one is really modeling this way anymore. At least if they are modeling this way, they're probably not modeling big time stuff. They're not an industry player at that point. They're a small mom and pop shop that maybe needed to put some casework detail together. And to be honest, casework details, a lot of that's still done in AutoCAD. It's pretty easy to put stuff together like that, especially two-dimensional details. You don't have to spend all the time modifying families, there's definitely some advantages to it being so simple, right? But the downside of it is it's not smart. So it doesn't update when you update that window size. That window size, like earlier, I said, hey, I want that sill height to be at 2 inches off the floor. I can't tell this. I want that 2 inches off the floor. I physically have to come here and now move this 22 inches to make that 2 inches off the floor. So it's just a different, and that didn't actually do anything to this one. Whereas physically, any change you make here, if I move this couch here, it'll move that couch in 3D. You're working with one model, right? Whereas opposed to this is you're representing a floor plan and then, you know, representing a profile off that floor plan, but they don't work together. They're not dynamic. They don't move together, right? If I move this window here in Revit, that window moves in the profile view. Okay. So that's why I don't feel that teaching this to the nth degree is necessary. And I probably will not go into it nearly as much as David went into it. And I think that's fine. I think we need to take a look at what our strong suits are and what programs, and utilize the right program for the right job, you know? Because AutoCAD is a player. It still is getting used, but a lot of times it's just for 2D background work. Any profile work that you're doing is going to be done in a 3D modeling program that actually has a 3D profile to it, right? So like for site and civil work, AutoCAD is still the king. Like for civil surveys, it still comes all through AutoCAD. But that's all plan view, right? That's all looking down. When it comes to putting something up, taking a section of something, AutoCAD just doesn't have that power. And that's why we've moved away to Revit for those tasks. All right, questions, comments, concerns?
I was outside. How did you get to make the layer work that,
I didn't get it to work the way that I wanted to. Like if I copy something, again, if I copy something in AutoCAD and there's work sets, it's a little different. But like if I copy something, doesn't matter what it started on, it just matters what layer you're on. So like if I copied something, and that's the weird thing. Let's try this. That's so weird. So it maintains, AutoCAD maintains the layer, whether you copy it, whether you offset it. Okay, unless you physically change that layer by drawing this, by changing it in the dropdown, or you're on a layer and you draw something completely new. But if you try to utilize anything that was existing and copy it or offset it, it wants to hold the layer that it came from.
you have to,
So what I did is I went ahead and just selected these 4 lines and then physically changed the layer and said, hey, I want this to be on the trim layer. Right. But it's not inherent to like, hey, it's going to stay on the layer that it came from. So let's just check that again. If I'm on hatch plan there and I try to copy that, yeah, it's going to maintain that layer. Okay. So just something to keep in mind. You know, if you copy something, regardless of what layer you're currently on, you may need to change that again. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and end the meeting for tonight. Again, let's turn in something that looks a screenshot of your profile right here, as well as the plan view that got there, right? If you want to include the story pole, great, whatever. At this point, though, your construction line should be deleted. We shouldn't have construction lines all over the place. Whether you have the offset around it or not, it should still look clean, right? We still shouldn't have a bunch of lines coming from the plan view and from the story pole. Okay. All right. Well, thanks everyone for your time. Hopefully you learned a little bit, and hopefully you learned that you want to sign up for my next class. So Todd's like, yes, please. Yeah, Revit is really awesome. I was one of these people about 10 years ago that was like, Revit, what's this? Like, it can't replace AutoCAD. And after being in it for 2 days, I said I will probably never use AutoCAD to its full potential again, and really haven't.
So it looks like that next class, it's 246, right?
Yes.
That's offered in the winter only?
Winter only right now. Yes.
Okay.
So, yep. winter only. That has been my only time slot. I typically have only taught like 8 nights a year until this year where I've picked up this class, and then I'll pick up this class again in the spring, and then hopefully they'll see, hey, this attendance is kind of low. Let's transform this, and we're gonna start working on morphing it into a BIM series, which I think is gonna be just so much more powerful. And when you get out of it, you're gonna have something that you've got super real world experience with, and you could go into a coordination meeting and feel comfortable that you understand what's going on, which I think anyone that wants to pursue BIM or anything with this, industry, that's where it's going to, is that you need to be able to, hold your own and understand what's going on in coordination meetings. And like, that's like the upper level, right? There's a lots of drafters that are underneath that, but ultimately that's what I want to get you to, the point that we're actually doing some high level coordination. We're reviewing, using another software, which is Navisworks, to really look at this in 3D. And, much more than just drawing a house and opening it up. It's something that you can walk away and be like, you know what, there's actually a potential for me in a career field. I really enjoy this. Or, that's really not for me, but you wouldn't have that. Like, if you just took this AutoCAD class and they're like, BIM's not for me, it's like, you don't even really understand what's happening in the world right now of this industry. And that's what I want to bring to the campus, is like the next part of it, which is the 3D clash side of it, where we're looking at, hey, this is anything that's over $1 million right now is utilizing some type of 3D coordination. I mean, it's so important. And it reduces so much rework that it pays for itself up front. And they're seeing that time over and over again. And that's why more and more things are getting modeled. And not only are they getting modeled, but more and more systems are getting modeled. Like, I had a job that I was on, that all the lighting control for all the tinted windows, every wire that went to every window controller was modeled. That's a lot of freaking wires. Like, I normally just model a conduit. They modeled like 24 individual cables, and each one of those broke out and went to each controller. And I mean, above and beyond. But that's what we're starting to see with, more and more talented people in this industry, is we're getting more and more content that's just excellent. And we're not, relying on these really crappy napkin sketches to do our work anymore. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Appreciate the time.
Thank you. See you next week.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks, Todd.